can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me.
This is TalkTV.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joan Collins, and I am going to be completely uncensored tonight.
Only a fool would think that was a legitimate...
You think I'm a fool?
I do now, yeah.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
I came to my senses and kicked the
That doesn't mean to me. The guy's been doing the same effing part for 35 years.
I kind of only came on here because I thought it would be kind of funny, but I want to say you're...
Don't bother me anymore, just the off.
How about if you do fight again, you have to give me £1 million? How about that's a deal? If I asked you what a woman is, what would you say?
A human being with boobs. You just start there.
I've been trying to work out how much money you must have made from American Pie.
If everybody that knows that song came to my shows, I'd be selling out stadiums.
The greased piglet of politics has slipped and squirmed through almost 3 disastrous years of disorder and deceit.
What would last longer? This lettuce or Liz Truss?
I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
The lettuce won.
A man must protect the woman and provide for her, so he needs to make sure that she's safe. He needs a degree of authority to protect her.
I have no problem with...
But people do have a problem with it.
Sorry,
and that's the world we're in now.
Andrew, I'm over here. There's nobody in this country or the world who hasn't lived the majority of their lives under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II. This is how she wanted her funeral to be. And like everything the Queen ever did, it just showed immaculate taste, unbelievable class and dignity. Nothing and nobody has symbolised what it means to be British better than Queen Elizabeth. They're trying to force you out.
Yes, not only the coach, but the other 2 or 3 guys there around the club that I felt betrayed.
It was stated that Elvis, was a racist. He's never been a racist.
When she said that, Olivia Wilde, it stung you, didn't it?
I thought the marginalised were supposed to have a voice.
Andy, you alluded to the fact that you had suicidal thoughts at one stage.
Yeah, I was close to going down the garden where I used to have a pond down at the garden with a little bottle and a few pills, and I was that bad one day.
Do you believe you can win this war?
Я не тільки вірю, я знаю, що так.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. We already showed the whole world that he can kill us, but to conquer our people is impossible.
We have another several billion years, so if you're going to prioritize...
Well, that's all right.
Forgive me if I look a bit sweaty and moist. The girlies apparently like it that way.
No problem with the tits?
No problem with the tits. No, tits aren't really involved in this.
The word you're looking for, Stanley. Oh, thank you, Piers.
Interview adjourned. Love you.
Turn the camera off. Very dishonest.
President Trump, well, first of all, how are you?
Very good. We're doing well, and it's nice to be in Florida. We're sort of all over the place, but a lot of time spent in Florida.
What is life like as an ex-president?
Well, it's interesting. It's beautiful. It's complex sometimes. We have a lot of endorsements going out and have gone out. We've done very well on endorsing candidates that I think are very good, and they are very good. And we've taken people from who were not going to win, and now they're winning big.
You're talking like somebody who feels he has unfinished business.
Well, we did a really good job. We created an economy that was incredible, and now supply chain problems, inflation problems, gasoline selling for $5, $6, $7. Think of it, a gallon. When I left, it was under $2, and it was largely under $2 for a long period of time. $1.87, $1.67 at one point, and now it's $5, $6, $7, $8, depending on where you are, going up much higher. And we have a war that would have never happened if I was president. That war would have never happened.
When the invasion started, You were quite praiseworthy of Vladimir Putin. You said he was a genius. This was a savvy move. That he was going in as a peacemaker.
No, that's the fake news' version, no.
Tell me the truth.
When he built up soldiers on the border, I said, that's very smart, brilliant move, because I thought he was negotiating. When he went in, I said, no longer a brilliant move.
When you see the scenes, Mr. President, of maternity hospitals being
I think it's
bombed,
terrible, yeah.
when you see refugees being attacked as they flee, grandmothers, children, babies, you see the decimation of previously prosperous cities living in a thriving new democracy. When you watch what's happening, I mean, do you agree with my assessment that Vladimir Putin is now an evil, genocidal monster?
Yeah, but I also,
You do?
when I look at, I do, sure. Who wouldn't? What's happening is horrible. When you see rockets going into apartment buildings, and there are plenty of people in those buildings, you know, they think they're like the people who moved out. They didn't move. They want to stay because they think they're safe in their apartments. Far more people are dead than you think. When I see all the death and all that destruction, and it's such a stupid war, because you had a country that was working, had problems, lots of problems, but other countries have problems too. It was such a horrible waste to be doing it. You see swings outside, you see playgrounds, you see hospitals. It was a country. And the people were happy. I guess a lot of them were happy because they're certainly fighting for it. But I'll tell you what I really think. I say, isn't it a shame all those people are dead, all because of a rigged election? Because if our election wasn't rigged, you would have had nobody dead.
When you said to Putin, don't invade Ukraine, what was his response?
Well, I told him what our response was going to be, and his response was, really? I said, really?
What did you say your response
And
would
you
be?
know what? If he believed me, good, but if he believed me only 5%, he would have said, I'll never do it.
What did you say the response would be?
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that, but it was a very strong response.
But did you threaten to use, for example, the nuclear capability?
I don't want to talk about it.
As he's been doing?
I don't want to talk about that. What I did say is we're going to be very strongly responding if you do that. I also said to President Xi, don't go into Taiwan. And there's going to be a very strong response. They both understood that. They both had the same reaction. Really? Really? I said, really? The thing that may keep him out of Taiwan is how poorly Russia's doing and how vicious it has to be, how horrible it has to be, because China sees that and nobody wants to see what's happening.
So what would you do right now in Ukraine if you were the president?
Putin uses the N-word. I call it the N-word. He uses the N-word, the nuclear word, all the time. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. He uses it on a daily basis. And everybody's so afraid, so afraid, so afraid. And as they're afraid, he uses it more and more. That's why he's doing the kind of things he's doing. He's doing them because he thinks nobody's going to ever attack us because they're all stupid and they're afraid to talk about it.
I totally agree with you.
Okay?
So what would you do
and
about
instead
it?
of, excuse me, it's a little complicated.
Sorry.
Instead of, kowtowing, instead of Biden saying, oh, he's got nuclear weapons. He keeps saying he's got nuclear. We have better weapons. We have the greatest submarine power in history.
So what would you say and do?
I would say we have far more than you do, far more powerful than you, and you can't use that word ever again. You cannot use the nuclear word ever again. And if you do, we're going to have problems.
My reading of what you've been saying is that when you were talking to Putin, when you were president, and he was talking about potentially invading Ukraine, that you threatened him with your nuclear capability.
I threatened him like he has never been threatened before.
Did you threaten to use nuclear weapons?
I don't want to say that. I threatened him like he has never been threatened before.
What's your message for Putin now, right now? If you could talk to him, what would you say to him?
I would say it's a shame what you've done. You're killing, I think potentially, look, if these people aren't smart, and they're not, our leaders are not smart. If they're not smart, you're going to end up in a nuclear war. This is just the beginning. This is the beginning. And I've been the best predictor of things ever. Now, it doesn't have to happen. It shouldn't happen. But if our people aren't smart, you're going to end up in a nuclear war.
So what's your message to him?
I think they're dealing with...
If he's watching this interview, and he will be,
look,
what would you say to him?
I think they're dealing with him incorrectly. I think what they're saying, it's almost like they're speaking with fear. And they don't understand. We have one weapon alone that would destroy everything.
The things I'm not happy about with your presidency, I'll be completely straight with you, to your face. One of them is what happened on January the 6th, which was a result of you refusing to accept the result of the election.
Before you start this, look, Nancy Pelosi is in charge of security. She didn't do her job.
She's half in charge of it. So the Republicans
the mayor of D.C.
and the Democrats have equal share of that.
The mayor of D.C. and Nancy Pelosi are in charge
Actually,
of
the Republicans and the Democrats have 50-50. But she was actually cowering for terror in fear of her life that day because there was a huge mob of people who were attacking the centre of democracy in America. If you talk the talk, and you're a great talker, I've seen that today, if you talk the talk, you have to walk the walk. In the context of your claim about the fraudulent election, it's been 14 months and we've not seen this hard evidence of the fraud that you say happened.
The press won't report it. The press.
You haven't produced
this is like a communist country.
Where is the proof?
It's all over the place. We have
it's not.
So
I've read
much
everything. Can I just put another thing to you? Because I've watched this whole debate, Rage, and you've been completely unflagging in your refusal to accept defeat. And
you know why, though? You know why? Because if our country doesn't have fair and free elections, and if our country doesn't have borders, we don't have a country.
Okay.
We have crooked, corrupt elections.
But here's what I would say to you.
And I've proven it.
Here's what I would say to you. I believe it was a free and fair election and that you lost.
You don't really believe that?
That's my belief.
All right. Well, then you're a fool.
However...
Then you're a fool.
Maybe I am a fool. Maybe I'm the fool in this conversation about it.
And you're a fool and you haven't studied it.
Okay, I have studied it. Here's the big question for you. Are you going to run again?
Well, you know, for reasons of campaign finance and everything, I'm not allowed to say. But let me just say this. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy.
So you are going to run?
I love our country. Our country is going to hell. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy.
So you're going to run?
I'm not going to say that, but I think people are going to be happy. You might even be happy.
If it's you against Joe Biden, if you win the Republican nomination again, and he runs again, would you beat him?
I believe right now, anybody, I think you could beat him right now. Look,
despite being a fool.
They've done a very poor job. I don't have to say anymore. They've done a very, very poor job. Our country's a mess. Our country has never been so disrespected. Our borders have never been so open. We've never had in 44 years inflation like we have.
If you run again and you win, which could well happen, and I think whoever the Republican candidate, right now, it looks like the Democrats are going to get shellacked in the midterms. It's quite likely whoever is the Republican nominee will end up being president. It could be you again. And for as many people who think that's a great idea, you'll know there are lots of people who think that would be a total nightmare.
Far less.
Far less?
I think so, yeah. I think far less. I think people are very angry at this country. They're very angry at our leadership. They wish they had their vote to do again. We didn't need their vote because, again, we won the election by a tremendous margin. We won the election actually very easily.
I haven't mentioned...
That's it.
No, yeah. No, I realise that. I realise I'm not like...
Very dissent.
I just haven't asked you
You're
about that.
a very dissent. This was a 20-minute interview.
Oh, sorry.
Listen, this was a 20-minute
interview.
interview.
Don't you think?
I think it's fine. It's fine.
I haven't asked about...
It's fantastic in your opinion.
I wanted to end with the hole-in-one. I just haven't asked about the hole-in-one. Do you want to...
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You recently got a hole-in-one playing golf with Ernie Els, one of the great golfers of the world. What was that like for you?
Well, it was great. He's a great guy, great player, one of the most beautiful swings, they say, in the history of golf, and very powerful. And I made it with him and actually 3 other tour pros, and it was quite a thrill.
Talk me through the shot.
Well, I hit the ball. It was hit well. It felt good. The wind was blowing hard into my face. It was a 5-iron that went 181 yards, and it went clank right into the hole. It landed on the green in one bounce, and it went clank. And Ernie, who's a low-key guy, one of the reasons he's acceptable, the Big Easy, right? But Ernie and the other pros started jumping up and down in the air. And I said, why are you guys so excited? He says, because we don't see hole-in-ones. They make, I guess, 1 every 3 tournaments, and then you have to be in the group. So it's rare.
Have you held one before?
I've had 7. This was the 7th.
7 hole-in-ones?
Yeah, 7. This was my 7th, which isn't that high a number, believe it or not. If somebody plays golf, I hear the record is 49. Okay, people.
Did you buy a round of drinks in the bar afterwards?
I don't know, but I would certainly have been happy to.
Well, you don't drink.
I don't drink. No.
It is traditional. You buy a round for everyone.
That is true. That is true.
Did you do that?
Probably happened. I didn't check, but probably happened because I own the club. I'm sure it happened.
Congratulations on the hole-in-one.
All right. Thank you very much.
And thank you for a great interview.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate
it. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Turn the camera off.
Thank you, sir.
those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me. Well, welcome, first of all. You come all the way from Romania to do this interview.
Correct.
What do you hope to achieve from this interview? Why are you here?
It'd be interesting to have a conversation with you. You've certainly been the subject of your own divided opinions in the world. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of people who would say some of the things you say are perhaps dangerous or toxic. So I thought you'd be a good person to speak to about this subject.
I didn't know much about you before this year, and then I suddenly became very aware of you, as the world did, because, as I said earlier, you were the #1 subject searched on Google ahead of Donald Trump. Yeah. I didn't think it was even possible. Yeah. Why did you get suddenly so popular / infamous, do you think?
I exploded. I certainly didn't do that with magic. I've been on the internet for a very long time. I think in the world we live in now, as the other side, the people who disagree with me, as they get more and more tyrannical in their censorships and their hate mobs, etc., as standard masculine practices are deemed toxic, I didn't put a magic spell on everybody. I managed to accumulate a large amount of affinity with the male populace across the Western world because I'm simply saying things that many men believe, think, and feel.
When I've gone over everything that's been at the centre of the debate about Andrew Tate, I come down with Joe Rogan in the sense that there's a lot of stuff you say I agree with. You know, I've got 3 sons in their 20s. It's not easy, actually, being a young male in the modern world. And I think a lot of the things that you say about that can resonate with them. Yeah. The problem comes with the, 10, 20% or whatever of your output, which on the face of it appears to be blatant misogyny. And when you couple that with your massive influence and huge reach, that is why the social media companies have decided to effectively cancel you. I don't believe in cancellation. I don't believe in censorship particularly. That's why I've invited you to come on the show. But But I do think a lot of the things you've said are blatant misogyny. Do you accept that?
So you made a very interesting point there. You just said on the face of it appeared to be blatantly misogynistic. I understand that on the face of some of the long format content I've made, if you're going to take a few seconds out of hours, chop it up, put it all over social media, accompanied with my massive fame, then things can absolutely not be taken out of context. I do not hate women in any regard. I have no negative relationship with women. No women have come forward saying I've hurt them. I have no criminal record for hurting women. There's no way I can be seen as the face or the devil in regards to how men treat women on the planet. I'm absolutely and utterly the opposite. I believe in protecting and providing.
Some of the things you've said, I just think are blatantly...
Well, let's do them. Let's hear them.
Let's go through some.
Sure.
Right? Do you think women are the property of men?
No. The point I was making...
Why have you said they are?
Because I made a religious point. I said that when a man marries a woman, the woman's father walks her down the aisle, and hands her away to the man. Traditionally, this is what it says in the Bible. I'm a religious person. I believe in God. I live in the most religious country in the world.
So you do think that the woman becomes the men...
I think she takes his last name.
You're a straight talker. I think my sister is her husband's property. Do you regret saying it like that?
I understand that with my newfound fame, perhaps it could be phrased differently. However, I still believe that a woman is given to the man in marriage. That's what I believe.
Yeah, but not as property.
No, the property is the word that other people use when they ask me the question.
But as an equal partner in a loving union. That's what marriage actually means. It doesn't mean that when you get married, the woman is given to you as a bit of chattel.
Agreed.
So why say it?
But that's the way that people ask me the question. People say to me, they ask the question.
Hang on. You can't blame people for asking you questions. Surely, if you want to be accountable for what you've said, you've got to own your responses, not blame the question.
I own the response.
It's like me asking you a question now and you say something and then say, well, actually, I blame you for asking.
I understand, Piers. Piers, I understand. I believe the woman is given to the man. I believe she's given away by the father. I believe she belongs to the man.
So fundamentally, you do believe that a woman becomes a man's property at marriage.
I believe she belongs to the man in marriage, correct.
Right. Oh, you see, that to me is misogyny.
And you're entitled to your opinion.
Right. But do you not understand why people think it is misogyny?
I understand why some people can be very offended by what I say. What they do is they take a point like that and they ignore all the other points I make the other way around.
Yeah, but that's why I've repeatedly asked you about that line to see if you've changed your position. But the reality is you haven't.
It's not about changing positions. I'm a full-grown adult and I stick by the things I say and I'm responsible for them.
Which, by the way, is fine. Do you respect women?
Absolutely. Why wouldn't I?
Do you think that 18, 19-year-old women are more attractive than 25-year-old women?
I think there's attractive people. That's a loaded question. I don't know.
Well, it's not really, is it?
I can't.
You know why I'm asking you?
Of course I do. But I can't sit here and say...
For the benefit of viewers who don't know why I'm asking, you said this. In general, this is also one of the reasons men find youth attractive. You want to blow up the internet? I'll blow up the internet right effing now. The reason 18 and 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25-year-olds is because they've been through less dick. People say, oh, you can't say that, but yes, I can. A 19-year-old is more attractive than a 26-year-old woman, and I'll tell you why. Because that 26-year-old has talked to more guys, been to the club more times, been effed and dumped more times, more arguments, more mess, more for me to clean up. That is misogyny.
Why?
Because you are encouraging a mindset about 25-year-old women that makes them sound out to be infinitely less desirable than 18, 19-year-olds, and having effectively been having too much sex to be taken in a more respectful way.
Well, firstly, even if that was the case, that wouldn't be misogyny.
Well, what did you mean by what you said?
That's not misogyny because it's not anti-women. I'm saying that an 18 or a 19-year-old woman would be more desirable.
It's pretty anti-25-year-old women.
Anti-25-year-old women we can argue, but not misogyny.
Well, that's misogyny then, isn't it?
No, it's not.
Well, being anti any woman at all is misogyny.
Not when I'm saying that women are beautiful and attractive at a certain age and saying the age is
You're saying 18, 19-year-olds are more attractive than 25.
Well, then ageist perhaps, but misogynistic absolutely
Is that
not.
But you just accepted it was misogyny.
No, I didn't. You said it was misogyny. I'm telling you, no, it's not.
So you don't think if you're saying slightly hateful things about a 25-year-old...
That's not slightly hateful.
Do you wish you hadn't said that?
I understand how it's been misconstrued. I understand how it's been weaponized against me. Do I regret it because it's been weaponized and used against me? Well, that's slightly annoying.
That's not why I want you to
Did I
regret
at the time mean what I said in the context of the conversation, which obviously you're not familiar with and the people at home are not familiar with? No, I meant what I said.
If a 25-year-old woman was watching this, would you say, I'm sorry for saying that?
Well, I wouldn't want anyone to be offended by anything I say. But I say things that offend. And this is the thing that's interesting, Piers. Please let me finish.
No, but you're behaving like a politician. But hang on. You could say I'm interrupting.
You do.
But you're answering a different question to the one I asked you. So, as an interviewer, you're behaving...
Sure.
Okay, you accept that. Let's accept we both got on. Okay. So, again, my point is simply, if a 26-year-old woman is watching this and has heard those comments, would you just say to her, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that?
No, I won't. I will say that I am sorry that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world.
That doesn't mean you're sorry.
No, I'm not sorry. That's the point I'm making. I'm sorry if that offends you. However, there's a large contingent of the world that believe that, and I was mediating for a conversation.
Have you ever been in love?
Yeah.
How many times?
Plenty. I believe in love between men and women.
Real love, you know, where it's...
Yeah. I believe...
How many times would you say?
Enough. I believe men and women are a beautiful union. I think we're slightly different, but when we work together, we're the most powerful force in the world.
How many women have you loved?
I don't know, Piers. A few.
Give me a ballpark. 5, 10, 20?
Let's say...
You don't forget how many people you've been in love with.
Let's say 10. I mean, I've been in love, and I certainly believe that men and women, when they work together, it's the most beautiful force on the planet. I believe in family. I believe in children. I believe in...
If you believe in family and children and love, why are you single?
I'm not single.
Well, you're not married. That's what I mean.
Well, if I was married, the last thing I would do is advertise it to the feral psychopaths on the internet. So
I'm not a feral psychopath.
Well,
you called me friend earlier.
Can be debated, Piers.
You believe in the concept of marriage?
Completely. That's what we were talking about the whole time.
What do you think?
We talked about a man giving a woman away. Okay. I believe in marriage more than anybody. In fact, I believe in marriage in... No, please. Okay. I believe in marriage in the traditional sense. I believe a man has a duty to stand up and be a real man. I believe that the problem with the world today that we are facing is that not enough men are sticking to the age-old ways of masculinity. I believe that me standing up and saying a man must protect a woman and provide for her, so he needs to make sure that she's safe. He needs a degree of authority to protect her.
No problem with...
But people do have a problem with it. That's the world we're in now.
Andrew, I'm over here. But I think what's interesting talking to you is it seems to me like you have gone on a bit of a journey of self-awareness about the impact of some of the stuff you said in the past, and you have said you wouldn't say it again in the same way. Now, you may not want to express regret for that, but it shows me that at the very least you have evolved to somebody who recognises that these can be quite damaging in the way that you said them.
Completely. As a professional and as an adult, it would be stupid for me to sit here and say that now that I'm the most famous man on the planet, my words do not have more impact than they did before.
What do you believe about depression? Do you believe depression is a real thing?
I believe that feeling depressed is real. I don't believe depression as a clinical disease is real, no.
Really?
Correct.
You don't believe people can be clinically depressed?
I think PTSD is very real. Unfortunately, I have some friends who suffer from that. I know that feeling depressed is real. I believe that the number one power you have against these things are trying to take control of your own mind and affecting your own life. I believe that it's not healthy to hand over all your power and believe that depression is an outside disease that you can't affect. I know that when I've had difficult periods in my life, and also many of my friends, like I've said, suffered from PTSD and been through terrible things. I've lived a very difficult life, and I know people who have. That the things that made them feel better is when they woke up and said, you know what, I'm not going to allow this to damage me anymore. I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to get up and I'm going to fight this as hard as I can.
And by the way, on that, I agree.
So we agree.
Right? My favourite speech is the Rocky Balboa one.
Okay, so then we agree. No, we did.
Here's where we don't agree.
Piers.
You don't... No, hang on. You got to let me interject when I don't agree with you, right? Where I don't agree with you is that there's no such thing as clinical depression. There absolutely is. Well, it's a proven scientific medical reality. There's a different argument about have we gone a bit too soft, right, in schools and all the rest of it. Absolutely. Do I think some people moan and whine too much about their lot in life? Definitely. Okay. Are we a victimhood society? 100%. Okay. Is there such a thing as clinical depression? Absolutely. And my argument is that if you actually bracket everybody who's not clinically depressed and doesn't have the genuine medical condition, then actually if millions of people are deemed to have depression, the ones who really need the help don't get it. Well, that's my point.
Well, that I would agree with. You're right. I think it's certainly an overused term.
But you don't accept there is such a thing as clinical depression.
No, I don't.
And that to me is a damaging view.
Okay. Well, let me explain why. If someone comes to me and says I'm clinically depressed or I feel very, very sad, I would say the first thing you need to do is stop accepting the identity of a clinically depressed person. Stop accepting you have no control over this.
Andrew, you're simply wrong.
If that's what you believe, Piers.
That's what I believe.
I don't believe in things that take power away.
There is not an eminent doctor in the world that would agree with you.
Piers,
do you think you know more than doctors?
I can't become clinically depressed.
Why do you know?
Because I don't believe in it. I can't be haunted by a ghost if I don't believe in ghosts.
Well, that's like saying I'm never going to die because I don't believe in it. It's ridiculous. So those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit different? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me. So
this is TalkTV.
I want to give you the time and the platform to really explain yourself, because I think that sometimes sound bites about people, perhaps taken out of context sometimes, can create a very distorted view of what a person really thinks. What do you think, looking back over the last few weeks in particular, what do you think have been the biggest misconceptions about you?
Well, I think there's a left agenda to silence anyone that goes against the agenda. Let's go back to Trump running for office back in 2015. Everyone that was around me in my industry, in the entertainment industry, told me that my life would be over. I would be on the wrong side of history. I've even had threats to my life for wearing the Trump hat. And it even ended up in, destroying my family and also making it where I have to raise my children differently because I actually am a person that's classified as black. I classify myself as Jew, but a person that's classified that had been given that title in America as black, in America, that I'm supposed to stay in a block of a vote. You never heard the term white vote. So why is there a term black vote? How is that okay? It sounds just as racist as a black drinking fountain. And my dad, called me and said, the thing that the left fear about Ye or makes me the most dangerous is I'm rich. And that's the point. Tupac told me back in the days, you had to get your money right and then you go to war. So I'm going to war. I don't have endless resources. I only have like maybe, honestly, only maybe $120 million in my account. There's, 1% of the world are placed in power, and 99% of the world are the audience. So that 1% of the world, this idea of a United Nations, this is the world that needs to come together. This is the world that, here's the obvious go-to. Biden doesn't listen to Elon Musk. The president of the United States does not have meetings with Elon Musk. That is, hey, here, come get me. That's retarded. I know I'm not supposed to say that, Biden, but that's retarded, Biden. And it's, and obviously, because I've been deemed with mental health, all this, I have the right to use whatever words that I like to use.
Well, that's interesting. So
ask another question.
Well, yeah, let me ask you on that. So you just said something very inflammatory about President Biden. It will, as you know, offend a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it will particularly offend people who work in mental health. You say you should not use a word like retarded. But you say that because you yourself have had mental health issues, that entitles you to use that kind of word as an insult. Now, I would say that's an arguable point.
I've had my issue is I've had mental health allegations. So many people to comment on my White Lives Matter T-shirt, there's people who are saying right there in Fashion Week, when are you going home? I'm so afraid. People thought I was going to cancel myself. I'm not going to cancel myself. I'm going to keep on delivering what I feel, because guess what? It's very split opinions, by the way. If I talk to a black person that makes under $1 million a year, they really relate to the George Floyd comments and feel hurt that I would even bring it up and question the approach.
Let me just pick you up on the two things you've mentioned. The first one is what you said about George Floyd. And the reality of that, it's not a media interpretation of how he died, because the Hennepin County Chief Medical Examiner concluded that Floyd died from cardiopulmonary arrest. His heart stopped, complicated by the way the police restrained him and compressed his neck. Now, he also said there were other contributing conditions.
Wait.
Well, hang on, let me finish. There were other contributing conditions, narrowed arteries, high blood pressure, and fentanyl intoxication. But although these were significant conditions, he said, and things that played a role in the death, they didn't directly cause the death. The cause of death was what that policeman did with his knee to George Floyd.
Person?
Well, why would a coroner lie?
What makes you believe that?
Why would a coroner lie?
Because he could get paid to lie.
Yeah,
because he could get paid to lie. Because
but
he's
I watched
talking
it.
in the press.
I watched it for
the
8 minutes.
The majority of the press.
Right, but I watched it for 8 minutes. But on the specific point about how George Floyd died, I don't think it's in question about what actually killed him. It was that police officer with his knee on his neck.
Well, it is in question. It isn't question. I'm questioning it.
Well, you can question it, but what you're questioning is a coroner report.
Do you have friends that were killed by police officers? Do you have friends that were locked up? Do you have people aborting half your race? No. So I am the black person with the black experience that's worth $11 billion and is the most influential person on the planet, and I am questioning it.
Okay.
I have a right to question it.
Absolutely.
You can't tell me with your accent that me as an American Jew black person that I cannot question that death and question the means behind it. That was put on camera
I'm not saying you
to
can't
traumatize. I'm not finished. La, 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 la means let me finish.
Okay.
I'm not finished talking. So I cannot see, because you distract my thoughts and then you try to make me look like a crazy person and you feel you have the right to cut me off. And I've proven you guys don't want it with me. This is like Terminator 20. You've never seen this before.
Let me ask you, if I can, about the allegations that you have made anti-Semitic comments. And in particular, when you said on Instagram, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. Now, many people who are Jewish found that deeply offensive. They wanted to know, what did you mean by going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people? Because DEFCON 3, as you know, is a heightened state of awareness for military action. So what did you mean by that?
Well, thank you for allowing me to say what I meant due to the fact that I was blocked by Jewish people after I said that. So I wasn't actually allowed to say what I was about to say. But what I was going to say is I was going to talk about all of the contracts, all of the misdealings that I dealt with as an entertainer. Being that I'm an entertainer, I've been wronged so many times by Jewish businessmen. Maybe they would feel how all my people have felt. Maybe they would feel the pain of when a black artist looks up and they've completely been raped by 5 Jewish businessmen. And there's multiple accounts.
Why does the fact that they're Jewish have anything to do with it?
Maybe they would feel like that.
But why would you say
it just so happens they are?
Well, okay, but why categorize them according to their religious faith, their ethnicity? Why would you do that? Why can't you just describe them as business people that you've dealt with? That's fine, but what you're doing by saying Jewish people, these constant tirades, against Jewish people, many people find
why
that...
Why are you calling it a tirade? That sounds like you have it...
I think it's a tirade.
Where's the tirade? That was a tweet. It was a tweet.
It's not just a tweet,
and you asked me to explain it. And that... Have you felt my pain yet? You haven't felt my pain. You don't want to feel my pain.
Well, no,
you don't hold You don't hold accountability to my pain. You're being a Karen.
I'm talking
about. I'm not a Karen to the pain.
I'm not a Karen, and I'm not going to cancel you, and I'm not going to uncensor you. I'm simply going to challenge you on what you're saying. I think you don't understand the pain that you've been causing with some of these comments, and I think that one in particular, I can understand.
Oh my God. God forbid, one comment could cause people to feel any of the pain that my people have went through for years. Even like the blacks being ushered to the left during the civil rights movement. No one has cared about black people.
All right.
No one is...
Let me say, I agree that the racism against black people has been utterly deplorable, shameful, unacceptable. And thank God the world is beginning to move to a better place about the way it has treated black people like you. However, one form of racism doesn't justify...
it's almost in a better place.
Well, one form of racism doesn't justify another.
It's not a better place.
I'm not cutting you off. I'm finishing my sentence so you can respond. One form of racism... It is racism when you say I'm going DEFCON 3 Jewish people. That's racism.
No, it's not.
It is. I think any form of racism is wrong. Any form of racism is wrong.
I didn't say DEFCON on anybody, though.
You said DEFCON 3 on Jewish people, specifically Jewish people. You didn't say any particular Jewish person. You said basically all of them. That is racism,
I was in a position where I've been hurt, and this is the way I had the right to express myself. The point of this interview is for you to question me, and then for me to answer and say, okay, even though the same rules are not applied to my people, if a person with a gun or drugs is pulled over and has 3 other people in the car, they're all going to jail. I'm not going to apply that to Jewish people for the sake of this conversation. Isn't that what you wanted? But you know what you did? You tried to civil rights me. You tried to pull me back to a week ago. There's been plenty of conversations and commentary since that. But you want me to go back to 1960.
No.
You want me to go back to 7 days ago.
All right, let me jump in. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to reflect.
Okay, so have we grown? Have we grown?
Here's how we grow. Here's how we grow. I want you to reflect.
No, have we grown? Have we grown? You're not in charge of my growth. You're not in charge of my growth, Chris.
Okay, let me phrase it like this. I'm about to suggest to you how you may grow if you choose to grow this way. And you can ignore me. You can ignore me.
Piers, how much money are you worth?
Not as much as you, sadly. I think you should say to the Jewish people, I'm sorry for the offensive language I used in that tweet. I wouldn't do that again. This is what I really meant. I think people would respect you if you said that. I don't know why you can't just say that.
Okay, so I'm going to tell people when I would apologize for the tweet. This is what has to happen first. I need all of the top executives in Hollywood. I need the top executives at the NBA and at the NFL. We'll do those 2 sports specifically. And I want the top executives in music, dealing with publishing, dealing with like Spotify and Apple Music and Universal Music and all the top exec. Let's do like 5 top execs there. And I want to look at the top 10 earners in each one of those fields' contracts openly. We want to compare and contrast the contracts. And then once we open that conversation, and we need to do it on a platform live with lawyers asking questions, and we'll have the top lawyers like a Johnny Cochran, Robert Kardashian level legal team, you know, looking at all of these contracts together. After that moment happens, then I will say, I'm sorry.
Okay, if that's your position.
That's clear. Interview adjourned. Love you.
To those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, oh, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me.
This is TalkTV.
Yeah, thanks for sitting back down. I'll change the subject now. I want to ask you about your family. A lot of stuff has been written about you and your family. A lot of it fueled by you, by Kim, by others. Where are things now with your family? What is your relationship like with Kim, with your kids?
Kim has Zionist media handlers surrounding her, all in and out her Hulu TV show, all in and out her family, all in or out the house that I created for my family. But God is alive, the devil is a defeated foe, and Kim is a Christian woman, And she's not here just to have content up on adult channels. She's not here just to have that last Interview magazine cover. If you look at the 2 Interview magazine covers, look at the one when I was there and look at the one when I'm not there. And that's the reason why this Tuskegee experiment of such that's happened to the black community, where they took the fathers out of the home and the leaders out of the community and have torn apart the community. Now they've seen that's worked, and they're doing that to America. They're attempting, they're trying.
I mean, that
It's not gonna work on our dime,
the
though,
Interview
because
magazine cover you're talking about, I think, is the one where she was basically semi-naked in front of the American flag. And I thought that was pretty distasteful, actually. It was about the American dream, and I thought, well, if that's the American dream, we're all screwed. I mean, in America.
And I agree with that. And I didn't feel the platform to voice my opinion, because I want to. It's always like, hey, this is your kid's mother. But it's time with the leaders. Like, I'm still the priest of that home. They want to make it this matriarch society, all that, and But I am the priest of this home, and God is alive. I am the living Robert Kardashian, and I'm going to stand up for what God would want as a Christian. And then people say as a Christian, oh, you're not supposed to curse. You're not supposed to have righteous indignation. But I do. Christians had swords also. Christians got guns, I tell you that.
Are you sad that you're no longer together, that you're divorced?
I had this, of course I'm divorced, and this is like a funny thing I thought. Being that her name is no longer West and my name is no longer Ye, if there was ever, being that her name is no longer West and my name is now only Ye, if we were ever to be together again, what would our name be? Kim Ye.
Would you like that?
Everything is up to God. And God has proven to me many times that it's not about what I want or what I would like. It's just up to Him on what He sees fits.
Do you still love Kim?
I absolutely love her. I'll love her for life. And I will protect, oddly enough, I'll actually protect her. Because when I call out things that I feel are wrong, that actually is a form of protection.
Do you feel like you've gone through a very tumultuous period, but that actually the love underneath it all between two people remains? And would you like to get back together?
Those thirst traps still be fire.
Is that
Do you understand what I said? Do you understand that language
I think so. I think so. You better explain it to me.
What do you think those thirst traps still be fire means? Can you explain that to me?
Well, with my rather creative British mind,
those thirst traps still be fire.
I would imagine it
with
means
your creative, brilliant British man.
I would imagine it means you still fancy your ex-wife. Is that right?
You know, I would prefer to not be put on this. I would prefer to not be put on the spot on these kind of questions. What I could say is, God is alive, and He places people. He placed David in to tend to. God had David tend to the sheep, knowing that one day He would prepare him to fight Goliath.
Let me ask you about someone we haven't mentioned, Vladimir Putin, and what he's been doing in Ukraine. What is your view of that?
I do not believe in war, and I believe that there is ways that America could have avoided this war. But Biden has money. Biden has reasons for us to be at war right now for selfish reasons. And what I would like to do, without giving you too much information, I would like to speak with my political advisors to give you the exact information. I'm not going to, hey, watch this one, Piers. I'm not going to shoot from the hip on this one, especially talking about war and things as sensitive as Ukraine and the Russian war, no, we already got that the RETARD comment earlier that maybe we could work on that I feel like is going to be massively offensive, and I really do. Now that one, I do apologize to people that I offended earlier in the interview on that comment. Maybe we could look at scrubbing that if we deem.
Well, actually,
like to.
I would say this: it's an uncensored interview. You said something which you've now wished you hadn't said, and you've apologised. I actually think that says a lot about you, right? That shows you've got that ability to be self-aware, to understand when you cross a line.
You know, I will say I'm sorry for the people that I hurt with the DEF CON, the confusion that I call. I feel like I cause hurt and confusion. And I'm sorry for the families of the people that had nothing to do with the trauma that I had been through, and that I use my platform where you say hurt people. And I was hurt. And I want to say that it's wrong to hold an apology hostage. And I got to let go of that and free myself of the trauma and say, look, I'm just going to give it all up to God right now and say to those families that I hurt, I really want to give you guys a big hug. And I want to, I say I'm sorry for hurting you with my comments, and I want to word it in not in like a political way, but in a presidential way, which means what I knew a president to be when I was growing up, in a sincere way. You know how people give those kind of I want to give an apology, and you're like, but did you? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, no, it has to be. I want to go to every person's grandmother and grandfather, and every person's son and daughter, aunt and uncle, and give them a hug and say, you know what, I've been hurt. So my kids do music. I don't want them to step into a treacherous place. I want it to be better for them than it was for me. So I want us to sit down and come together and really work on that. Would that make sense to you, Piers?
You know what, Ye? If you'd simply said that in your tweet, I don't think there would have been any problem. And I'm very, very pleased, actually, that we've got to a place where you felt able to say that. And I think it was sincere. And
but we still have a problem. That's my point.
No,
Piers?
I get it. But what you've now done, you've now explained the context of the problem. And you also issued a sincere apology to people who were rightly offended by the way you phrased what you said. So I think that's a good place to finish the interview. To those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back, with all the experience you've had of being president, would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, oh, fuck, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, Don't bother me anymore. Just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me.
This is Talk TV.
Mr. President, First Lady, thank you both very much indeed. I want to ask you first, we're 5 months into the war, into the 6th month now. How are you both doing? How are you coping with this?
How are you doing?
How are you doing? Якщо я можу сказати.
Well, if I may say so, to be honest, I have this feeling as if it were one day. That is why when it was the 6th day, the 7th day of war, since that day I really have this feeling that all of this is one very long day.
Я не бачу, щоб сильно відрізнялось 5 місяців.
I don't really see the difference between 5 months or 6 months. The only difference is when we feel that at the battlefield the situation is stabilized. Or we know that at some points, in some positions, we are advancing. And I keep thinking about that. As you know, we are all human beings and we have to be strong. Sometimes we want to have someone close to be next to us, and that is what you miss in these moments.
Поблизу, поговорити, і ти за цим сумуєш. Так, сумуєш.
Yes, I miss my children, I miss my wife. It is impossible to get used to it. Everything else you can get used to.
Іншого можна звикнути.
These kind of situations, they can make or break a marriage. Is your marriage stronger, do you think, because of what you've gone through in the last few months?
What do you think?
Are you sure
About
that
our
I
marriage?
have to begin to answer?
You prefer?
Okay. Yeah, okay, I'm ready.
Я можу спочатку.
Oh, please.
Я завжди була прихильницею теорії, що
I agree with the theory that marriage gets stronger with challenges. I think in our case it would be the same.
станеться так само.
We have become more interested in each other. I think in our case it will be the same story.
Одне одному
We have got something else to say to each other.
Я дуже хочу, щоб
That is why I want this challenge to make us more united.
знало ще більше.
What do you think about it?
My answer wouldn't be different.
Mr. President, when this war started, that awful night back in February, you appeared very soon afterwards and made a video address, which you put out on social media. And I remember watching it in real time and being very moved by it. And it was really your decision to stay here in Ukraine and to encourage the people of Ukraine to fight for their country. Some leaders might have left. What made you stay?
Я по-іншому просто не міг би зробити.
Well, it couldn't have gone any other way because the president is a leader of its people. The people voted for me and the strength of our state. This is something that I have already mentioned, the strength of our state. This is consolidation. This is unity of our people, all of us together. The government, the people, the servicemen, people just want it started. They would go to the streets, they would stop tanks, other military vehicles, so the government had to stay in the center of the decision-making processes.
З боку Російської Федерації сказати, що
It was very important to make sure that there is no informational chaos, because we cannot say that this intimidation works, because otherwise they would say that their informational propaganda actually won, that the government would leave this is what they wanted. This chaos, because chaos is the weakness of the state. This is the weakness of institutions.
On a more serious note, the Russians you're the number one target for them and your family is the number two target. That must be a constant pressure for all of you.
Це не просто, коли ти думаєш про свою сім'ю. В даному...
It's not really about you thinking about your family. Yes, in this case, the family is at the center of attention, and yes, this is true. These targets still remain for some people from the Russian Federation. As far as I am concerned, I think it is a given. I think that it is a part of this situation we are in, and we are in a state of war.
And First Lady, for you as a mother, to know that the Russians are targeting not just your husband as president, but you and potentially your children, your family, for any mother, that must be a terrifying thought.
Я намагалась ніколи не думати про ці нумерації.
I tried never to think about these numbers of targets, because when you think in terms of target number 1, target number 2, if you think too much into it, then you can become really paranoid. And yes, I understand I'm a mother like many other mothers in Ukraine. That is why all Ukrainians are targets number 2. And of course, it's all unpleasant feeling. I don't want to think that they want to do this to our family.
What your people have been saying to me, I interviewed a father in Bucha whose son was tortured and murdered by the Russians. And he was very emotional. And when I suggested to him, how would you feel if your president did a deal with Russia? He said, no, 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 no. And I interviewed two young women whose apartment block was the last apartment block to be hit by a cruise missile a month ago. The same reaction, instant. No deal.
They hate.
Yes.
They hate, and it's understandable. Yeah. When so many families lost, yes, for example, their neighbors, their children, what the deal? So what the result of this deal? Could Russia or can Russia give a child back? No. That's why they say no. So there are no emotion, only one emotion, hate.
What is your view of Vladimir Putin, the man who is leading this war?
It is difficult to put it into words. It's not possible to understand how one crooked idea can throw the whole of mankind into the medieval ages. I really don't have words. And I really don't want to say anything aloud, because normal words don't exist to describe this.
Mr. President, he is your enemy in this war. He's the leader of Russia. They've been doing despicable things to your people, bombing maternity hospitals, committing war crimes, no question, torturing people, murdering them. What is your view, your opinion of Vladimir Putin?
По-перше, зрозуміло, ви сказали, що...
Well, it's clear, and as you have mentioned, he is enemy number 1 in this war. It seems to me the scariest thing about it is that he is in fact sane, and he understands what he's doing. I'd say that's the scariest conclusion I can make, that he understands what he's doing. He knows how many people he kills. He knows how many people were raped and by who, and the number of children killed or deported. Therefore, I only understand one thing. The world allowed this situation to develop. It allowed such a person to emerge with that ideology and attitude towards people. The world should understand that this result, this mistake to allow this situation, is the responsibility of the whole world.
Do you believe he would ever use a nuclear weapon, Putin?
Я не знаю.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what his aims are. I don't know what the civilized world allows him to do, because if it shows its weakness, he will use everything.
Покаже силу, я не вірю, що він це зможе.
Do you believe you can win this war?
Так.
Yes.
No question.
Я не тільки вірю, я знаю, що так і
I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. We already showed the whole world that he can kill us. But to conquer our people is impossible.
How important has Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, been to you?
Дуже потрібна була.
We really needed the attitude and the relationship between the leaders.
Тому що я йому дзвонив
We have been in contact every other day.
Ми з ним спілкувались, могли.
I was not only connected through the bureaucratic way. I was able to call him once a day, every other day.
Ми з ним спілкувались і говорили.
When the situation became easier after the occupation of Kiev, we have been in contact weekly.
What about America? Hugely important. They've given billions of dollars to help your effort. But President Biden hasn't been to Ukraine yet. Would you like him to come?
Very much. Я вважаю, що це
I believe this would be a great signal, a big signal. Everyone sees Ukraine's attitude towards the US. This would be the highest support.
First Lady, is it true that he didn't tell you that he was going to run for president?
Say it true. Say it true.
Well, he forgot.
You forgot? You forgot to tell your wife you're running for president?
He understood that probably I wouldn't have been fond of this idea and that it would take a couple of hours of very difficult negotiations with me. That is why probably each day he was thinking that this is the day, that this is the moment, I should tell her, you know, but he kept postponing it. Then it was on TV. I saw his New Year's address. It was New Year's night and found out he was actually running.
Wait a minute, you found out on TV? Really? Mr. President, really? You announced it on television before you told your wife?
I was not laughing so much, so loud last 5 months.
To those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way that Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, oh, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me. Well, Jordan Peterson joins me now. Jordan Peterson, welcome.
Thank you.
To Piers Morgan Uncensored. I suppose my first question, and there will be people genuinely wanting a simple answer, but there's a bigger answer too. Who is Jordan Peterson?
Well, I'm a clinical psychologist and a professor, and I'm doing that on a broader scale now, I suppose. But it's an extension of what I've done since 1987, really. I mean, I taught the same things I'm teaching, although I've expanded them all throughout my academic career, and my classes were very popular, and not popular exactly. The students found them extremely useful.
Why have you become so notorious? Because I look at it as, I've actually watched a lot of your lectures. Mm-hmm. I've listened to hours of you and Joe Rogan talking about stuff. I don't see the devil that some people try and portray you as at all. And it seems to me the one thing we may share in common is certainly not intellectual prowess, where unfortunately I'm many yards behind you. But what we do share, I think, is that a lot of people seem to have drawn an opinion about us based on either what they've seen in a tiny clip, taken out of context a lot of the time, or what they've been told to think about you by other people.
Yeah, well, that's some of it. I mean, I got tangled up in a political controversy in Canada. I mean, tangled up. I put my foot in it to some degree because I wasn't very happy with what I regarded as government overreach in relationship to who is in possession of my tongue. And I decided a long time ago, and really a long time ago, that I was going to say what I thought, and sort of independent of the outcome. You know, often people craft their speech. You know, I could have come here on your show, for example. I spent half an hour thinking, well, what do I want out of this show? But I don't think like that. I wanted to come here and have a conversation.
Ultimately, what is your goal? What is the point of Dr. Jordan Peterson? What do you hope to achieve through what is now huge global fame?
I hope to encourage people. Other than that, I want to see what happens. You know, I want to say what I believe to be true as clearly and carefully as I possibly can, and I want to see what happens as a consequence. And what people don't understand about that, in some sense, is your happiness. The purpose of your life is not going to be happiness. Sometimes it is. Sometimes that will come, but there will be difficult periods in your life, and happiness won't suffice then. But what you can have in your life is an adventure. You can have an adventure. And the truth is the best adventure. There's no doubt about that. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is you don't know what's going to happen if you say what you think. Now, I don't mean incautiously, and I don't mean provocatively or any more than necessary. You don't know what's going to happen. So that's very adventurous. But also, if it's you and your voice, then it's your adventure.
A weird thing happened about 2 weeks ago. I was on Instagram and suddenly up popped this picture. And it was you with a friend of mine, Cristiano Ronaldo, the football genius, greatest player to ever play the game as far as I'm concerned. And you'd been to see him just privately. And he was saying how great it was that he'd met you and you'd gone there. And all hell broke loose. He was bombarded with people saying this is outrageous, legend over, legacy finished, none of which would have bothered him because he'd heard all this kind of thing before. But the venom of it was, from certain quarters, was so pathetic, it seemed to me. So first of all, what were you doing with Cristiano? Why were you there?
Well, he invited me to come and see him, and he had had some trouble in his life a few months ago, and a friend of his sent him some of my videos, and he said he had watched those, and then he read my book, one of my books, and found them very helpful, and he wanted to talk. So I went out to his house and we talked for about 2 hours. And he showed me all his equipment for keeping himself in tip-top condition. And we talked a bit about his companies, but mostly we talked about what he wanted in the future and some of the obstacles that he's facing while pursuing that. And so we had a strategic conversation, I would say.
Were you, in a way, the Ted Lasso figure in his life?
Well, that's what it felt like.
He didn't realise he was missing?
Yeah. Well, I think maybe he did realise that he was missing it because he seemed to have found it to some degree in those lectures. And so, I always like to hear not only what people are up to, but what they want. And one of the things I loved about my clinical practice, which was very much predicated on this, like, well, you're miserable, let's say, and not to say that he was, because he has a good life in many ways, but if you could envision a path forward out of your misery, let's say, to somewhere better, what would that look like? And it's not a question people ask themselves with enough depth. And then, having developed that vision, what are the strategies that might be put in place to make that more likely? And again, not in a manipulative way, but if you had to conduct yourself in the proper manner to bring about this desirable end, or at least to move towards it, how would you organize your behavior?
When someone like Cristiano, who, we know what the personal problem was. He'd lost a baby. He and his partner was incredibly sad for him. And professionally, after that, a lot of turmoil as to whether he was going to stay at his club and so on and so on. It seemed to me, talking to him in the last couple of days after he saw you, he's in a much better place, actually.
That's what happens when you hang out with a reprobate like me.
Yes, but really interesting to me that so you and he both got criticised for just seeing each other. But actually, it was clearly very helpful to him.
Well, I hope so. That would be lovely if it was true.
I couldn't really get my head around why so many young people feel so anxious all the time, compared to when I was young, when it wasn't really a big thing amongst my friendship group, certainly. But I reckon it's two things. One, social media, the constant bombardment of other people having a great time or looking great, often a false imagery, and that having to live up to false ideals. But also a conversation I had with Dr. Phil in America, where his explanation for it was that he said, you've got to understand that social media means that young people now are being bombarded all day long and all night long with quite shocking imagery. And he gave an example. He said, when I was young, he said, if a crocodile ate somebody on a golf course in Florida, the chances are I would never have heard about it. It probably wouldn't have made the national news, probably wouldn't have even made the state news, and I wouldn't have heard about this incident. Now, it's quite likely that a video of the crocodile eating this person would be whipping its way around social media within half an hour, and young kids would be sharing it, disseminating it, and being exposed to this constant imagery all the time of quite unsettling and shocking imagery. What do you think of that theory? And I think that in itself was adding to a sense of everything's terrible.
Well, I think it's a corollary of an information overload theory, right? I mean, one of the advantages to having the computational power we have is that everything is at your fingertips. And the disadvantage is that everything's in your face. And by everything, it might be 40 million pornographic images. Like, that's a lot. Or an endless array of tragic scenarios. And really endless. And so that's a problem. And the fundamental problem is, how do you handle the fire hose of information? And no one really knows the answer to that. But we should also point out that it's no wonder that young people are demoralized and anxious, because we're doing everything we can to demoralize them and make them anxious. So on the masculine front, we tell young boys that, well, the world's a terrible patriarchal tyranny, and all of that patriarchal tyranny, which is the whole explanation for history, has done nothing but oppress and exploit people and destroy the planet. And so that any manifestation of that masculine impulse on your part is equivalent to the world-destroying force.
Well, all masculinity now is branded toxic.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think the key moment for me came when Gillette, who'd always had these very masculine commercials with the big guy cuddling a baby or whatever it may be, they suddenly switched gears and did a campaign where it started with a lot of Me Too imagery and basically the assumption that all men are awful until they can prove otherwise. And I predicted in a column this would be a complete disaster for them. And sure enough, $9 billion later, they did a screeching U-turn and went back to the big guy cuddling the babies. Because actually, two things I think about that. One, most men are not awful, actually. And secondly,
not all the time.
No, some men are, obviously. Some women are pretty awful. But not most of them. But if you try saying that and not getting cancelled. But I think also this thing that you've got into trouble about, which I don't understand why, that you believe that most women probably quite like their men to be strong and confident.
I don't believe that. All the data shows that clearly across cultural samples and has for 50 years. Plus, everyone knows it.
Anecdotally, most women I know, I think, would absolutely agree. Why is it that you've been so vilified for suggesting something which is so palpably true?
Well, I think, first of all, that annoys narcissistic women no end. And it annoys people who think that there are no biological or cultural limits on how we manifest our behaviors. And also, it frightens a large number of women because many women have never had a good relationship with anyone masculine in their life. And so the notion that they would need to establish a trusting relationship with a man, especially if he's also in something approximating a superordinate position, which is what they might like to find him maximally attractive, also implies that they're in some sense going to be under his sway. And if there's no trust there, well, that's absolutely terrifying. And I have some sympathy for that because there are no shortage of women out there who've never had a positive relationship with anyone masculine. And so they're completely unable to discriminate between narcissistic power and compulsion and confident competence. And so because they can't distinguish that and they're afraid, they put all of that in the same category, which is something like the predator category. And that's not good for them because, well, as you said, all men aren't predators all the time. And they need to establish a relationship with a man.
What are your best traits and what are the worst traits of Dr. Jordan Peterson?
Well, I think that it's been difficult for me to optimally regulate my irritation at times over the last few years. And I'm trying to get that right, to figure out what the right, because a lot of things that have happened have outraged me. And then I'm not exactly sure what emotional tone to take as a consequence of that outrage. And that's a very complicated thing to figure out. And that's been exacerbated, that problem, by the fact that my family and I have been the targets of very conniving and attacks and underground attacks. And that isn't stopping. I mean,
another time when your wife was fighting a deadly cancer.
Yeah, and my daughter was sick, and so was I. So so it's very difficult to regulate your temper properly under those circumstances, let's say. And so I don't imagine.
Where have you most improved yourself, do you think, as you've got older?
I get better and better at listening, and I'm better and better at finding my way forward with the words that I choose. And it's just a continual, in some sense, incremental expansion.
Having met me now for an hour, what would your initial clinical diagnosis be?
Well, you're probably optimally disagreeable for your profession, because you can listen, but you're also not a pushover. And that's a very fine line, right? Because if you're too assertive or aggressive, then you get domineering, but if you're not enough, then you're a pushover. And
the film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure. Why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
It's making you emotional. Talk about that.
Well, God, it's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. And you get these casual insults, these incels. What does it mean? It's like, well, these men, they don't know how to make themselves attractive to women who are very picky, and good for them. Women, be picky. That's your gift, man. Demand high standards from your men. Fair enough. But all these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man. That's
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, oh, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me.
This is TalkTV.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview with me?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. Well, I like you too, and I appreciate it, because I think that you've had to sustain a lot of criticism this year in particular, probably more than at any stage in your career. And I think it's time to set the record straight and to clear up a few things, not least, I suspect, for the fans of Manchester United. They must be wondering what the hell's been going on.
Oh, as I say many times, the fans, I'm always gonna say good about them. They are the most important things in football. You play for them. They're always in my side. I feel that every time when I walk in the streets, the fans coming to me, and they appreciate what I do for football. And for me, it's the most important in football. The fans, for me, is everything.
I want to take you back to last summer. You're at Juventus, and there's massive speculation about where you're going to go. And the big rumour is that you're going to go to Manchester City. So first of all, how close was that to happening?
Well, honestly, it was close. It was close. It's something that they spoke a lot, and Guardiola say 2 weeks ago, I guess, that they try hard to have me. But as you know, as my history in Manchester United, your heart, your feeling, the history that you did before, make the difference. And of course, as well, Sir Alex Ferguson.
After a few weeks, things weren't going well at Manchester United. The club just wasn't firing. And in the end, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, the manager, got sacked. And that's within like 2 months of you coming back. What were you feeling about what was going on at United? And what did you feel generally about the club itself and the state that the club was in compared to when you'd been there before?
Piers, to be honest, when I signed for Manchester United, I thought everything was changed because it's 13 years that I changed. I was in Real Madrid 9 years and 3 in Juventus. And when I arrived, I thought everything will be different, you know, the technology, the infrastructures and everything. But I was surprised in a bad way, let's say in that way.
It was little things like even the swimming pool that the players use, the saunas, all these facilities. Nothing had changed since you'd left in 2009.
Nothing changed. Surprisingly, not only the pool, the jacuzzi, even the gym. Even some points, the technology, the kitchen, the chefs, which is I appreciate, lovely persons. They stop in a time which is it surprised me a lot. I thought I will see different things, as I mentioned before, technology, infrastructure, but unfortunately we see many things that I'm used to see when I was 20, 21, 23, so surprised me a lot.
When you look at, I mean, United have had some of the best managers in the world follow Sir Alex Ferguson, and they've all been relative failures compared to other stages of their careers. Do you think that partly that's down to the structural element of this, that there just isn't the support that top managers need?
I don't know what's going on, but since the Sir Alex Ferguson left, I saw not evolution in the club. The progress was zero. For example, you have an interesting point that how the club as Manchester United, after Ole, they bring sport directive Ralph Rangnick, which is something that nobody understands. This guy is not even a coach. A bigger club like Manchester United bring sport directive, surprised not only me but all the world. You know.
Well, it was a ridiculous decision, wasn't it?
Of course, in my opinion, you have to be honest. If you're not even a coach, how are you gonna be the boss of Manchester United? It's something that I should see that Manchester is not followed not the right way to reach successful like other teams, like for example Liverpool or Manchester City, Chelsea. They are one step behind or two because of this kind of mistakes. In my opinion, they should improve and change probably the staff or the people, the directives or presidents. I don't know who is the problem there, but
did it show a lack of ambition to you when they replaced Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who a lot of fans liked, but he obviously wasn't delivering the big titles that United wanted and were used to. But to a point, someone like Ralph Rangnick, I mean, I'd never heard of him. And I'm thinking if had you heard of him?
No, of course not.
You'd never heard of this guy?
Nobody, and the people who I speak, nobody knew who is him.
So. Suddenly did you call him the boss?
Of course, I respect. We have to call because he assumed the job. Regardless, all the coaches that I had in my career, I call them boss because if they assume the job, we have to call in that way. But in the end, deep inside me, I never saw him as a boss.
So Rangnick's come in, it's your second manager, it's not working, the results aren't great. You're still scoring goals regularly for Manchester United. You're about the only one who is. But then you get hit by an awful episode in your life, probably the worst time of your life, where your partner, Georgina, she's pregnant with twins and is actually giving birth to these 2 babies. And your baby son doesn't survive. And I don't think I can imagine, I have 4 kids, you have a lot of children, you know, you can't imagine a worse thing to happen than to go a full term of a pregnancy, particularly for the poor mother in that case, but also for you. What was that like for you, that time in your life?
It's probably the worst moment that I passed through my life since my father died. You know, when you have a kid, that you expect that everything will be normal, and you have that problem. It's hard, you know, as human being that I am. Me and Georgina, we had quite difficult moments because we don't understand why happened to us. Was difficult, to be honest. Was very, very difficult to understand what's going on in that period of our life. Me and my family, especially Gio, that was tough.
I mean, such a difficult situation again, where you're mourning the terrible loss of your little baby boy, but also celebrating the birth of your beautiful daughter.
I try to explain sometimes to my family and even my close friends. They say, I never felt to be happy and sad in the same moment.
Yes.
I never felt. It's hard to explain.
So difficult.
So difficult. You don't know if you cry or you don't know if you smile.
Yes.
Because it's something that you don't know how to react.
How did you explain it all to your other children? They must have been so confused about it.
In the beginning, Gio arriving home and the kids start to say, where's another baby, where's another baby? Of course, Cristiano, I had conversation with him in the day, because he's 12 years old, he knows, he understands everything. And I had a nice conversation with him. We cried together in his bedroom, and he explained, and it's kind of, he didn't understand. He understand, but in the same way, he was a little bit confused. It's better to say in that way.
Yeah.
And after 1 week, I say, you know, let's be frontal. Let's be honest with the kids. Let's say that Angel, which is the name, they go to the heaven. I receive a letter from the Queen family as well.
Really?
Yes, I do. Which is
from the Queen herself, or?
Yeah, family.
Yeah.
And surprised me a lot.
Offering their condolences.
Yes.
Wow.
Unbelievable. This is why I say I respect a lot the English community, English people, because they've been very kind with me, and in that difficult moment of my life was spectacular. The way they treat me and my family in that difficult moments. I should say straight to the crowd and thank you to the all English community that helped me in that moment.
One of your biggest critics has been, and I'm surprised about this.
Me too.
Wayne Rooney,
for example,
who you played with for many years very successfully, and were good friends with him, and yet all this year, 3 or 4 times, he's come out and attacked you in the media.
Piers, I don't understand. You should ask this question to him, but I don't know. I don't know why he criticized me so bad, or I don't believe that he's jealous of me.
He says your behaviour is unacceptable. United should sell you. You know, blah 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 blah. I mean, it's Wayne Rooney.
It surprised me. It was 1 year ago or 6 months ago here in my house. He pick up his kids here and invite Cristiano to go to his house to play football. I really don't understand people like that. Or
is it jealousy as well, perhaps, that you're still playing and still in the
probably,
Man United
probably
red shirt?
Because he finished his career with 30s, so I'm still playing high level. I'm not gonna say that I'm looking better than him, which is true, but. But
that is inarguable. I mean, there's no contest.
It's hard to listen that kind of criticize and negative about people who play with you. For example, Gary Neville as well.
Yeah, I mean, Gary Neville, you blanked him the other day on the pitch, and he looked quite upset, actually, because he obviously likes being your friend, but he's been pretty critical of you as well.
People can have his own opinion, but they don't really know what's going on.
Are they still friends of yours, or do you have a line where...
They are not my friends. They keep criticize me, negativism every time. So I continue my trip, and I have to catch up the people who like me.
So those who don't like you, There's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man.
But to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you have to people who can't think of anything worse than you running again and will be distressed about it? Would you come back with all the experience you've had of being president? Would you come back a different person? Would you do things a bit differently? Do you believe you can win this war?
Yes.
No question.
And I don't only believe it, I know it will happen. We will win. He can occupy these towns and villages, but all of them would be destroyed, because without ruining them, they will not be able to take those places.
He's an inspirational leader, and the way the Ukrainian people have come together in these terrible times. I mean, like you say, we've never seen a sovereign nation invaded by a hostile foreign nation since World War II.
Cristiano, let me start just by asking you, why are you doing this interview?
Because I think it's the time to say something. And because I like you. As simple as that.
Well, don't say that in public. How many times a day do you get told to tell people to F off?
All the time.
Like a dozen times a day?
I was at the Scottish BAFTAs last night, and I couldn't get away from people. And of course, it's, as I said before, it's the best thing to tell people.
Yes.
Because when you're fed up with them, you go, oh, you know.
You can say it, we'll bleep you.
Oh, don't bother me anymore, just the
You know what? I'm not going to watch what I say, Tyson, because I don't think you do either, really. I think that both of us, have the self-confidence to say, you know what, stuff this nonsense. Stuff the fun police, as Shane Warne, my great friend, used to say. Because I think it's just what it does, it removes all the fun out of life. It makes life a very joyless kind of experience, doesn't it?
I don't know what's going on in the world. Everybody's upset for something. And no matter what you say, can't please everybody. But for me, the only person I'm interested in pleasing is my wife, and I'm struggling with that most of the time.
I can't play like that because my wife gets mad. My wife gets so mad when I'm playing. She doesn't like my sense of humor.
Well, your wife
She's always thinking I'm going to get canceled or something.
You boasted openly of having 6, 7 partners at once. So is that righteous? I'm not taking there's no moral view from me.
This is TalkTV.
Which things have annoyed you the most?
Family issues.
I want to talk about one in particular on that, which is when you were late back for the pre-season training. A lot of speculation because you'd said several weeks before that you wanted to play Champions League football and that you were maybe looking for another option because it didn't look like United would get to play Champions League.
Let's make my points. For example, the pre-season moment, and after you mentioned new clubs or the interesting. For example, the pre-season, I had a very, very bad, which is I don't say nobody. The people who surround me, they saw, friends and even my mom. I had some problems in vacation that my young daughter, they have a little problem. They have bronchitis, which is she's
bronchitis.
Bronchitis,
really?
Yes.
Your little baby, though?
Yes. I was in Mallorca in holidays and she stayed 1 week in hospital, which was, you don't enjoy a lot the vacation.
And after what had happened, so worried.
Exactly. And the people make up histories that they say that I don't want to go travel. Piers, people have to understand that I'm a human being. I'm always going to be in my side of my family. I'm not negotiate nothing behind that. You understand? And I even have the letters from the hospital, the feedback of the health of Bella, which is I'm not showing nobody. Nobody asked me. I keep for me. People forget that I'm human being, that I pass through a difficult moments.
Well, you must have been worried sick. I mean,
I was very worried.
You lost your baby son, and now your baby daughter's in hospital.
Exactly.
And you must have been absolutely.
I spoke with the directive of and the president of Manchester United, and then kind of that didn't believe that something going wrong, which is make me feel bad.
Really?
Yes, yes.
They didn't believe you.
They believe you, but in the same way, they are there. And never is ever gonna change the health of my family for a football. Never. Now or 10 years behind or forward, and it's something that really hurt me because they doubt of my words that I struggle, especially Bell and Gio. We had 1 week in hospital because the Bell have a big problem. And I didn't go to the preseason because of that, because I didn't was allowed to left my family if something happened to do it the preseason, because I think it wasn't not fair to left my family for a preseason. This is why I didn't go.
It seemed to me that right from the start, Ten Hag wanted to show you who the boss was. He dropped you, he benched you, he mucked you around, he talked about you in the press. Were you getting that feeling? I mean, did you feel that?
The feeling, he always mentioned to me that I didn't need the preseason, so I should wait for my opportunity. I really understand. I should, well, okay, I understand. But I'm not going to give you points, but he don't do it the same procediment to every players. I'm not going to mention players, but they don't do it the same way.
You don't have a good relationship with him?
I'm not mean good relationship. The empathy is not good, let's say.
Do you think he respects you?
I think he don't respect the way I should deserve. But it is what it is. This is why probably the game against Tottenham I left.
Well, I want to come to these two games. So against Manchester City, where United got destroyed, he didn't bring you on. He brought on other strikers, but didn't bring you on. And I felt insulted on your behalf. I was like, well, surely against Manchester City, if you're losing this badly and you've got the greatest player of all time sitting there, you at least give him some time, don't you?
Excuses. I see as excuses. Okay, you don't put me against Manchester City because of respect of your career, and you want to put me 3 minutes against Tottenham.
Well, that's the thing. So then you then play Tottenham.
Don't make sense.
And then he wants to bring you on with 3 minutes to go. He was deliberately provoking you.
Well, everyone know that.
Disrespecting you think?
Exactly. This is why I say I don't have respect for him, because he don't show me respect for me. This is why we are in that situation. I have to be honest that the things don't going well because of that, because the empathy don't exist, and he keep say things for the press, but the press say what they think it's good to protect probably him and Manchester United. But I like guys that they don't lie, they speak honest, they be frontal, and I'm not negotiate my morals. My morals always will be intact.
And that seems to have been the pattern of the way Ten Hag has wanted to treat you since he became manager. Just constant attempts to disrespect you, I guess.
Many points happen. I think in some certain points, I think was strategy from the club for me to react like that.
Because they wanted you to leave?
Probably, yes.
They're trying to force you out, you think?
Yes. Not only the coach, but the other 2 or 3 guys there around the club.
At the senior executive level?
Yes, that I felt betrayed.
And you think they're trying to get rid of you?
Honestly, I shouldn't say that, I don't know, but listen, I don't care. I'm always, people should listen the truth. Yes, I feel betrayed, and I felt that some people that don't want me here, not only this year, but last year too.
They didn't want you to go there at all?
No.
Really?
No. Yes. The owners of the club, they don't.
The Glazers.
The Glazers, they don't care about the club. I mean, professional sport. As you know, Manchester is a marketing club. They will get his money from the marketing. The sports, they don't really care, in my opinion.
Do you ever talk to them, the Glazers?
Never.
Never?
Never.
Not since you've gone back?
No. They give all the power to the president, the sport directive.
A lot of Manchester United fans are very negative about the Glazers. They think they're taking all the money out and not spending enough on players, on the infrastructure issues you talked about. Do you think the fans are right?
The fans, they're always right. I think the fans should know the truth, should know that the players, we want the best for the club. I want the best of the club. This is why I'm coming to Manchester United. This is why I love this club. But you have some things inside the club which don't help to Manchester reach the top level as City, Liverpool, and even now Arsenal, for example, which is complicated. It's difficult. It's hard. In my opinion, it will be hard for Manchester to be in the top of the game the next 2-3 years.
Do you feel like you need a fresh challenge?
I'm not saying if it's fresh challenge, but let's see. I cannot answer right now because my focus is for the World Cup. But I don't know. Maybe it's good for Manchester and probably it's good for me as well to have a new chapter.
What is the truth about other clubs making offers for you? Some people have said there were no offers at all. I happen to know that there was a gigantic one from Saudi Arabia. I mean,
for example?
Like 350 million euros for 2 seasons, is that?
True. Yes, it's true.
That's a staggering sum of money.
Yes.
Which you turned down.
In that moment, yes.
I mean, that to me says you're not just about the money.
I will be honest with you. I didn't have many clubs, but I have many offers of the other clubs, right. Which is I didn't change because I didn't plan to do it. But I have. But what the press keeping say and the garbage press say that nobody want me, which is completely wrong. And I was happy here, to be honest. I was motivated to do it. A great season here. But they continue to repeat. Nobody want Cristiano. How they don't want a player who last year scored 32 goals with national team.
I mean, that's the point I don't get, because there are people out there, and you see them, you hear them, and they say, well, he's not the player he used to be. As if somehow at 37 you're going to be as good as you were at 21.
Day by day we're getting old. Every one of us. You understand? It's normal. You have to adapt. And I think nobody in this game have this brain that adapts with his age. I'm not want to be cocky to say that I'm the same that when I was 20. Of course, no. But I'm adapt and I be smart to know my strength, what I'm good to do. And I'm still playing the high level and I score goals and I will continue to score goals.
Cristiano, what a pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Piers. It was a pleasure for me too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
To those who don't like you, there's people out there that don't like you. I know you said recently that you were very popular, and I think you said you were the most honest man in the world last week.
I'm a very honest man.
Was that true?
Yeah, I think I'm a very honest man. That's
but to those who don't like you...
Much more honest than you, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm pretty honest.
Because I don't think you're real.
Really?
But, yeah, I think I'm a much more honest person in most ways, in most respects.
Why am I not real?
But we're not going to get into that. Let's finish up the interview. Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
My question was this. What message do you